On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what's in today's show, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, as you and I'm sure many of the viewers will know, the thing I'm most famous for is writing a book about the Owlman in Cornwall. But that has set me on all sorts of trails over the years, and I'm particularly interested in any stories about winged humanoid creatures. And we have one here. In recent years there's been a whole string of Mothman sightings, or what are called Mothman sightings, around and about Chicago. And this week we have Lon Strickler, somebody I met some years ago on a radio show and have been meaning to have on the show ever since. We have Lon Strickler talking about the Chicago Mothman. But first we've got to go down to the crossroads.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another afternoon episode of On the Track. Every Saturday afternoon at 3 for about half an hour, although I admit it's been getting a bit longer recently, and every Wednesday evening at 6:30 for about half that, we bring you a mysterious, miscellaneous melange, plus anything else beginning with M that I can think of hard science, weird shit and surreality. I usually ask to make sure that everybody at this stage knows what surreality is, but instead we've got to go down to the crossroads. About 90 years ago, a not very good blues singer called Robert Johnson was frustrated at his lack of ability. And so he followed in the words of an old Southern States tradition, and he walked slowly at midnight up to a crossroads where he met a mysterious black hooded figure who taught him to play the guitar, and he could play the guitar so well that if it hadn't been for him, there would be no Led Zeppelin, no Rolling Stones, no Beatles, no modern pop or rock music. Well, I've got a similar problem. I don't know how I'm going to start this episode, which is about sightings of Mothman in and around the city of Chicago, Illinois. So I decided I'm not looking for the devil. I'm wanting to have a quick word with Robert Johnson. So I'm wondering if I make my own tortuous way up to a crossroads. It's not midnight, but then again I'm not Robert Johnson. So let's see if the king of the Delta Blues can tell me and show me how to start this episode. It's always weird looking at pictures of me going along from behind, because I keep on forgetting how bald I am. And I don't mean to be vain about these things, but I'm rapidly becoming an old man, and I don't really like this process very much. It was widely believed in most of the syncretic religions of North America in the 18th, 19th and early 20th century The crossroads were marked by strange, mysterious beings. Some people said it was the devil. Others said that it was the guardian of the crossroads. Probably something which came from one of the original animist religions of West Africa. But whoever it was, he could grant wishes.
One, two, three. Come ye out, Robert Johnson.
But of course he didn't come out. It wasn't midnight, and I sincerely doubt whether there was any link between the King of the Delta Blues Singers and Kenneland Cross just outside the village in which I live in North Devon. So I went back to the office feeling slightly crestfallen, and Hennis suggested,
Why don't you just sing a Robert Johnson song, Mr. John? I'm sure he wrote a song either about Mothman or about Chicago. I bet my wattles on it.
Won't you take me where I wanna go? Oh, won't you take me where I wanna go? Down to see that Mothman in sweet home Chicago. Well, 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4. Look, a feathered humanoid coming through the door. Won't you take me where I wanna go? Down to see that Mothman in sweet home Chicago. And if, ladies and gentlemen, you still don't know what surreality is, I don't think you can do much better as a definition than film of a fat white man after having tried an unsuccessful attempt to contact the spirit of a dead black man, bowdlerizing at one of the dead black man's songs, and then interviewing someone about Mothman. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to someone I've admired for many years, Lon Strickler. Well, Lon, thank you very much for saying you'd come on the show. It's lovely to talk to you again. What I was going to ask you, do you remember a few years ago we were on somebody else's show, and I can't remember whose it was, but you and I were both on talking about various things, and we got onto the subject of your Mothman research.
Right.
Which was, I believe.
Yeah, I remember that was that was a show back. It was 2018. It was on Memphis radio. I was part of a hosting bunch, and and that investigation has continued on. We after all these years, we're still looking into it.
Well, I think people are fairly familiar with the original Point Pleasant Mothman sightings, but especially in Britain, we don't know anything as much as you do about the Chicago ones. So please tell me, Illinois Mothman from the beginning.
Okay, well, actually, there were 3 sightings that first occurred or were actually recognized. They were reported to MUFON back in 2011. It was 3 three subsequent sightings in August, September, and October 2011 in South Chicago.
Don't have to leave a message.
And of course, it being.
Okay, I'll see you. I'll give you a shout when I finish, Richard. But I'm recording.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry about that. An old friend of mine staying.
Okay.
It
was in South Chicago, and it was on reported to MUFON. So of course we didn't get any of the information directly, so we didn't know who to contact or anything. But that did bring up some interest, but in spring of 2017, that's when the lid blew off. We started getting, MUFON started getting some reports, and we tried to start following up on them because they weren't. And as time went on during the year, people were contacting us because MUFON wasn't following up on the cases. So, actually, in 2017, we had 55 reports in the Chicagoland area of sightings and encounters that we believed were viable sightings. And actually, it's continued on. We've had 5 or 6 sightings this year. So it's still a phenomenon for the most part. I mean, at this point right now, we're at about 165 sightings.
Good Lord.
And it just continues on. And many times these witnesses have no idea what it is. What's that again?
65 in 12 years.
Yeah. And for the most part, these sightings are of a 5.5 to 6 foot tall being with bat-like wings. A wingspan anywhere from 10 to 15 foot, very dark in color, emaciated body, small head, and many times the red eyes. And we have had sightings from all different types of people. We've had a lot of sightings in the O'Hare airport area. And in fact, a lot of the reports have come from employees, pilots, and air traffic controllers and security people. So it runs the gamut, actually. And like I said before, it still continues on. And, we've investigated as best we could, but we still have no answers as to what this thing really is. Because I believe they're much more. I think it's many of them.
If they've been photographed, hang on a second, somebody wants to join us.
Okay.
My little dog insists on coming and sitting on my lap whenever I'm doing an interview. Come on, dog, sit down. If they've been seen by people in the location of the airport, and then he hasn't been picked up on security cameras.
Well, let's put it this way. We have filed FOIA requests for information and for photography, and no one will come forward and give us anything. I mean, we've contacted the FAA, which controls all of that.
Yeah, of course.
And we've filed several requests, and it just has not come through. These sightings are so quick that people getting photographs on individual phones is just difficult. I mean, by the time the shock hits them, this thing's gone. But as far as security cameras and other areas and in other locations throughout the area, we have filed request upon request, but have not been successful in getting any footage.
Have any pictures been taken by any members of the public?
There have been a few, but because of the nature of this being and so quick it is, the pictures are pretty indiscernible. I mean, it's at a distance by the time they get a photo, and we just can't really make out what the photos are. People have tried, but they've been unsuccessful for the most part.
Now, the main source material for the 1967 Point Pleasant Mothman sightings is John Keel's book. Have you had any of the, I'm not sure what the word would be, the supplementary weird happenings that Keel reported, like the weird telephone calls and the problems with electricity and things?
The only phenomena that I believe has been associated with these there have been a few UFO reports associated with it, as well as other humanoids. Some people describe them as looking like gray aliens, but others, they just don't know what it is. I mean, but they're not winged like these beings. They're sometimes they're seen in the same vicinity. As far as other paranormal activity, no, not like it was at Point Pleasant.
And there's been no disaster like the Point Pleasant Bridge, because Keel was sure that was all part of it.
No, I talked to John Keel many years ago, and he expounded on the Harbinger theory, and of course, after the bridge collapsed, he really wrote up. But then again, you forgot to figure it was small town, 46 people died just before Christmas. People were looking for reasons and excuses as to why it happened. Now, I will tell you, when these reports started getting out into the media in Chicago, there were people calling me 24/7 wondering if there was going to be a disaster or something bad was going to happen in Chicago. Now, these were people who didn't have encounters, but there was a lot of fear. And, I mean, that's waned a bit because nothing has happened. But, but people have been fearful of some type of repercussions of these sightings.
But so far, after 11 years, nothing's happened.
Not that we can tell. Chicago's a fairly dangerous city. I mean, there's a lot of violence in that city, and I don't know. It's just nothing there to really pinpoint any association with the sightings.
When people have these sightings, are the Mothman figures seen flying or on the ground or something else?
Both. Yeah, there have been a couple of instances where people literally walked up onto these things, got very close to it, and but for the most part, they're seen flying. Sometimes at a distance, but other times fairly close. It's been going on during the day and at night. You know, when we first started getting the sightings during the spring and summer 2017, we thought it was going to back off because of the weather, because it gets really chilly in Chicago. But no, it's been a year-round phenomenon.
And when people are close to the creatures, do they make any attempt to communicate with the witnesses?
You know, the two instances in particular, the witnesses were physically affected by In fact, both of the women who had the encounter literally fell to the ground. Their legs gave out on them. So I guess they didn't really try to communicate with it, but in both instances, well, the first instance, it was the woman heard it gargling. It was she was very close to it. She walked up onto it at night in a local playground. And she didn't know what to make of it until it turned and she saw how big it was. And then she just lost all control of her legs and fell to the ground. Now, she did get up and make her way to a bench so she could sit down, but she kept an eye on this thing at the whole period. I think it was actually standing and sleeping because it was making weird gargling sounds and it was covered with the wings wrapped around its body. In the second case, her and her husband had seen this thing fly in front of them. And as they were getting to the building, it was a condominium. As they were running towards the building, this thing literally descended in front of them and was hovering above the ground about 3 foot. And it was vibrating. And that both of them said it was like it was shaking and vibrating. They could feel the vibration. And she lost control of her legs and she fell to the ground. In fact, he had to pick her up and take her into the building because after it had levitated again and ascended back up into the air. But it was hovering in front of him about 10, 15 seconds.
And when people see these things, do the Mothmen, or whatever they are, the Mothman, do they react to the witnesses in any way? Do they show any sign that they are aware the witnesses?
Not really. Oh, they're aware because they're not shy, quite frankly. And I've had a couple witnesses tell me that when they saw the thing fly over them, they would literally see it looking back at them to make sure they saw it. And it would actually come back again to make sure they saw it. I mean, these things are not shy. So, yeah. Other than that, I don't think there's been any other reaction by this creature.
So, over the last 11 or 12 years, has there been any progression in the way that the sightings are? Have they changed in any way over the years?
All in all, no. They've been fairly consistent. We've had a couple of description differences early on. There were some of the sightings were of more like the Mothman of Point Pleasant with a insectoid type wing. Then others were calling it the Owlman with feathered wings and like an owl face. But for the most part, I'd say 95% of them have been, like I described earlier, the dark emaciated body with the gargoyle or bat-like membrane wings. Now, there have been some differences. Sometimes the arms are attached to the wing and sometimes they're detached. Not all of them have red eyes. Some of them have black eyes. And, but all in all, it's been these sightings have been fairly consistent.
What do you think they are?
Well, I don't believe they're indigenous. I think they're, if you want to call them that, an interdimensional being of some type. I think they have the ability to move within our Earth plane and another dimension. There have been sightings of these things literally manifesting like it came through an invisible doorway and vice versa, that they'd see them disappear, like they went into thin air. I think it does have supernatural abilities. I mean, other than the red eyes and the way it flies, because many times it can fly without even flapping its wings. So, yeah, I think it's a supernatural being, and I do believe myself, and I think many of my investigators who work with me believe that it's some type of supernatural being and possibly from another dimension.
Do you think it's harmful or dangerous?
I don't think it's harmful at all. Now, why is it showing up? I don't know. You know, that's one thing that we just really haven't been able to figure out. And believe me, we've tried to figure out what this thing was. I mean, we've gone all angles as far as possible clues as to why it may be there. But at this point, it just seems to want to be recognized or be seen. And of course, it's just scaring people in most respects. But as to its purpose, no, that we don't know.
We know about the Point Pleasant creature, and you've now told us, I didn't realize there were so many in the Chicago area. Is there anywhere else in the country where they're happening at the moment?
We have had sightings in other places. About the same time in 2017, we had 3 sightings in Pasco County, Florida, by 3 different witnesses. Here in Pennsylvania, is particularly where I live at, here in South Central Pennsylvania, we've had several sightings over the years of what people call either Mothman or winged humanoids. But all in all, none of it has been anywhere close to what's been going on out in Chicago.
I wonder I really want to know what this is all about. But then again, that's why I do this. This is why I do what I've done for the last 30 years. It's because I want to know what on earth this is all about.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I wish we had a better idea what it was. But I don't know. You know, we've been tracking these sightings within a 250-mile radius of the city now. It just has not been in the city itself. It's been in the suburbs. It's been up into Wisconsin, down into in Indiana and Illinois. So it's a regional phenomenon. But the sightings, for the most part, have all been very, very consistent. And that's why I believe there's multiple beings. I mean, I think there are different beings that come in and out at different times. But, you know, I hope we can really get to a point where we do have some type of tangible evidence, even some type of communication, if that could be the case. I mean, to where we could find out why they're showing up when and why they're doing it.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, and check out our Patreon.
And there's the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little house, will tell you.
Don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you won't be told when the next episode's gonna be.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about it for this episode. I'd like to say a big thank you to my special guest, Lon Strickler, and I'd like to say a big thank you to my producer, Louis, but he is apparently still gallivanting around the colonies cosplaying John Wayne. That's a sight for sore eyes. So I will have words with him when he gets back to dear old Blighty. But in the meantime, I'll be back on Wednesday, and on Wednesday me and Richard Muirhead are talking about the contents of his latest issue of his magazine, Flying Snake. And on Saturday I'll be back And I am talking to the ever lovely Gwyn Palmer, who is the Assistant Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and who has been working very hard these past 6 months on finalising the edits to the long-lost third, hitherto unpublished book about hominins by the late, great Odette Churning. It's a fascinating story, it's a fascinating book, and I hope you all enjoy it. So, I'm going to be here on Saturday, and are you listening to me, Mr. McQuillan? Because when I say I'm going to be here on Saturday, I hope you're going to be watching the show. I hope you're all going to be watching the show, but particularly Mr. McQuillan, you should be watching the show, because if you're there watching the show and I'm there doing all the other stuff I do, the live chat and everything else, I'll be... No, it doesn't go that way, does it? I'll be...